Hi, y'all. My name is Adam Hayfin, and I chose my project to be on Chapter 19, Behavior Disorders. Behavior disorders are very complex, and the brain does many different things for these individuals or people. You have to understand that they do things because it's not that they want to embarrass themselves or they want to act like that. I used to think, well, why do people act like that, or why do they have to be that way? It's actually it's their function, it's their life, and they've done so many different things to maybe get to that level that they're at. So on there can be a chemical imbalance, there can be a trauma involved, there can be lots of different, or just the way that they've been raised. So I'll tell you, I used to think that, man, a good kick in the pants to that kid would make him right or make him fine. Like that kid needs to be disciplined. The more that I've read and the more that I've researched over time, I've come to find out that that kid probably, if you kicked him in the pants or whipped his butt or put him in timeout, it wouldn't make any difference because it's the way that their bodies are reacting and their brain is working. And so I thought that was very interesting in the way that when I was reading all the things that I was coming across and what I was studying, that those behavior issues are actually a thing. They're really actually real, and I really didn't realize that until now, and I've kind of noticed that throughout my life, but I actually come to really realize it now. We've come to find out more and more about this behavior disorders and how they work and what's going on with these individuals. I'd like to say that as I read through the chapter, I saw the differences in the different disorders, and there's so many of them. There were things that I was reading about, like I'm just going to name a couple of them, like there's autism, ADD, ADHD, which is byproduct of ADD, but also like the thing is Tourette's, anxiety, OCD, and drug-induced behaviors, depression. I wasn't thinking about all these different things that people have problems with, but it actually is a problem from them, and it can make their learning harder for them in the overall. One thing that I'm going to talk about, and the one thing that I'm going to focus on, is I'm going to focus on PTSD. PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. And I thought this was actually a very interesting one to me because it actually hits home, and I'm going to tell you a little story about somebody that I know and the things that he has actually gone through in his life. How this works is that how you get PTSD is that it could be in many different ways. This means that an experience has happened to an individual that has made a trauma in their life, and it affects their brain so much that whenever something happens, whatever reminds them of that situation, they get a trigger and they go into a mode or an action or an imbalance of their brain to make them freak out or go into this trance or in some way not act right. And it could be anything. It could be something very little to me and not make any sense and not work. But in the overall thing, for someone else, it could be the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to them in their life. So it's on an individual basis thing, which that's what really made me think about what was going on with these individuals and how it worked for them. It's all individual. And so the thing to me is, if it doesn't make a difference to me, why would it matter? But it does matter to those individuals because it affects people over and over and over, and they have to deal with it and cope with it. The reason why I also chose PTSD is because the disorder leads to many of the other disorders within behavior disorders. If you have PTSD, it could lead to lots of different things. Most likely, the most common thing is you have anxiety because of the things that happened. You are depressed because of the things that happened. You have OCD because of the things that happened, or you have little tics that you need to do to make sure that you don't get set into the trends of having this post-traumatic stress syndrome. And also drug abuse. That is an induced thing. So I'm going to give you a little background about this person named Brian. He's a 28-year-old. He was raised by a good family. Had a good stay-at-home mom, teach him lots of different things. He went to public school, and his dad actually works in construction. He has four brothers and two sisters. He is the oldest child. He was a natural athlete in high school. He wasn't the best, but he actually could get by and do pretty well in the sports that he did. He was an AB student, did very fine. He graduated And right when he graduated, he went right into the service at 18. So he served in the military. His grandfather was a colonel in the Air Force, and so he went into the Army. His grandfather was a colonel in the Air Force, and so if those of you who don't know the ranking system very well, colonel is actually the next rank to go up is general. So that's pretty high within the military. So just give you a heads up on that one. He also, this boy was an Army Ranger, and he went to the war in Iraq and served 4 tours in Iraq. And so you can imagine some of the stresses and the things that were put on him. An Army Ranger, if you don't know what that is, it's a special forces type of soldier, so you are put in some very crunch situations, and you probably don't want to talk about what happened because in your mind, you had to do things that you had to do to survive. And so I want you to kind of get in your mind about this person. The next thing is that his ranger missions did take a toll on him. There's no doubt about it. He took a toll on him, and that's why he has PTSD. And I'm going to say that right now. He does have the PTSD. When he got home, he had a hard time coping with things and getting adjusted to life and making sure that everything's going fine for him. He actually came home, and when he got home, his mother and his father said, "You're very different. Why are you different? You're acting weird." And his brothers and sisters said the same thing. "You're acting weird. Why are you acting so weird? You're not the same person that left." And so that put a lot more stress on him because he thought that he was not being the person that he was supposed to when he came home. And home was supposed to be a safe haven for him, and it kind of turned into a bigger stressor for him. So you can imagine all the things that he dealt with over across seas from being in Iraq and the different things that happened over there, and then coming home and kind of being a disappointment. In his mind being a disappointment. He probably was not a disappointment to his parents. He was just acting a little different and weird because of probably the situations or the experiences that he had overseas. He had never talked to anyone about these experiences and things that went on, so he fell back into the same old mode again and got addicted to the drugs again. And so he's on heroin. Essentially, a heroin addiction, it's hard to overcome, and so he just went back to it. This person had to go to the doctor. He had to go to the doctor because he was a little sick from being lazy, from not moving around because he was on the heroin. He didn't move around very much because he didn't want to because he was always high. So I'm going to tell you that this individual came to the doctor, came to the hospital, learned, and we had to do some things to him to make sure that he was getting his lungs open. The doctor ordered something on him that we all think is very stupid and very simple and easy. He has to be able to get some secretions up out of his body. And the doctors ordered an acapella. So we go in and we teach this guy how to do an acapella. Very, very easy. Simple thing that we could teach this dude. You'd think that anyone of this stature could do it. Why would the drugs make an effect on what he could do? Well, yeah, he could probably be a little slow and delayed if he was on the drugs of heroin, but he wasn't at this time. What happened is when you go in it, let's just say this, we went in and I taught him how to do the acapella. I went in, I said, all right, look, this is how you do it, explain to him what you had to do. He blew into the acapella, and it was very interesting what happened after that, is that he blew into it and something snapped. And you could tell that his PTSD kicked in, his behavioral disorder kicked in. And it was very weird to see him snap, and how it worked is that he... I'll give you the backstory on it, is that he felt the fluttering in his chest, but it felt like some bombs or the things that percussioned in his chest like it was overseas. And so you can imagine this soldier that hasn't been in the field for, let's just say, 4 years, he all of a sudden clicked back in and started going into a mode that I've never seen anyone go into a mode before. He started to freak out, get low, started yelling, "Get down, get down," imagining things that weren't even there. It was really crazy in a sense. Finally, this person realized that he had to snap out of it. He snapped out of it and he came to and said, "Look, I'm sorry," and he explained all that. He had to figure out what had happened. Luckily, he did snap out of it. I could have been hurt. You never know what could happen with someone that's like that. And so, teaching someone like that, you never know if what's going to happen at any time. We're thinking it's a little a cappella. All it does is flutter our chest a little bit. It flutters the chest a little bit so that we can consolidate some secretions. But to that person, it was a huge deal to him because it reminded him of the experiences that he had. Teaching wise, it was very easy to teach. All you had to teach is say, hey, look, you blow into this, it's going to flutter a little bit and it's going to move on its way. But to get over the disorder, to get through the disorder, that's what was the interesting thing to me. Now that I know that this person had this disorder, and every time he would blow into this, it might set him off. So I had to figure out, how am I going to train this individual or come up with something to make sure that he is not going to have this reaction when he just blows into this little device. So from there, teaching wise, it has to be hard. There's lots of different ways that we could teach this individual. I want you guys to think about how this works and how you would teach him and how you would explain to him. So in all, we had to figure out how to address the behavioral issue that we're coming up against to teach the individual. You might have to come up with some sporadic thing to make it fun for them, or for them to not get upset, or for them to not set off their triggers. This chapter has been very interesting to me in making sure that I'm able to teach these individuals. You have to be able to cope with the things that go on around you and making sure that you specifically teach to them. You have to change your teaching styles, or you have to be a person that can change in a sporadic moment to make sure that they can understand the message, and actually you have to explain it well. Sometimes it's not even the explaining, sometimes it's just the way and how you do things and how you do it with them. Overall, just remember that you never know what you're going to come up against and how you're going to teach these things. We are healthcare professionals, and you never know what you're going to have to walk into. Remember, it can be the simplest thing in the world, and it can mean the biggest difference to someone, or it can make the biggest difference in someone's life. Thank you so much, and hopefully you guys weren't too bored. I tried to mix it up a little bit with all the hats. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.